Camelot Kings and the Tartarus Titans, and it will be the Kings on first pick this time around, so they'll have first option coming out of the immediate ban phase. We've already talked about Tiamat. Maybe let the Tiamat through, that way you can get the Artemis for yourself, maybe even first pick it for yourself if you're the Kings up here with this first round.
It's worth it, man. I think that god is really, really strong right now, and giving that over to Netrioid is definitely a good idea. You remember their set earlier on this season, or this phase rather, it was where Netrioid took Medusa and got really fed in that game. He soloed Cyclone Spin once or twice at the very least and really got far ahead, and then they didn't really push that lead super well. It took them 45 minutes to win, but they did ultimately win it. So you know, if you're Netrioid coming into this set, even though you didn't dominate that game in the mid game, in the late game as much as you would have liked, you know you dominated Cyclone Spin early. So I think that he should be coming into this match with some confidence.
Well, we do see the first bans coming through, Yamoja and the Artemis taken away. So instead of even risking going for a first pick or potentially giving it away to Cyclone Spin, the Kings have elected to ban that Hunter out first and foremost. Where on the flip side, the Titans immediately take out the top two mid laners right now. Morgan Le Fay and Tiamat both taken away. And the Cucullin, a little bit of an odd shout, I would say. Cucullin I wouldn't consider a meta ban necessarily, but maybe one that is necessary against the player's namesake onto it.
Yeah, Benji is going to be able to pull out Cucullin and make it look really good at basically a moment's notice. So not too surprising, and it is a Terra ban. Okay, so the Titans take away the premier mid laners in Terra, which I like. I think I'm fine with that. I'm surprised that the Kings didn't leave Artemis open, because you could have put the Titans in a spot where they have to ban Artemis or Terra, and you get a really good priority pick on the back end. Osiris is good, but I don't think he's as good as Terra or Artemis, especially for how the Kings like to play. So I would have liked to see a little bit of a switch up there, but overall I think that now we're at this is a pretty neutral state in picks and bans. Like, Kings getting Osiris is not like, oh, here we go, now we got to worry about this. And the Titans aren't going to get anything super insane on the back end of these two top picks either. It seems like a little bit more of a handshake draft than I was expecting coming in.
I mean, Osiris going on to Captain Twig, that's been one of his kind of go-tos. It's kind of been every jungler's go-to be fair, as far as it goes. But I'm kind of with you on this one. Osiris, in recent weeks, hasn't really shown that maybe he deserves to be a first pick, especially when you have premier players and premier gods. Like you said, make them choose. Do you want Terra or do you want our Artemis? Which one do you want to go with for those players onto it? But instead, they elect to take both these off the board between the two teams. Instead, we see an Odin picked up again. He still seems to be a very high priority for these pro players, and Gilgamesh on the back end of that as well go over to the Titans.
I mean, now you've got your initiators locked in. If you're the Tartarus Titans, you've got Odin and Gilgamesh. Those are going to be your fight starters, and you take those out of Variety's hands, and these are picks that he has liked. So now you're thinking about whether or not this Osiris is going to be jungle or solo. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't jungle for the Kings, but maybe with enough changes they could do it that way. As Bologna. Okay, so
Odin support.
Odin support, Gilgamesh jungle, Bologna solo. And I have no problem with that being your three, right? No problem whatsoever. However, the problem I have is, in what world does Bologna get banned here from the Kings? They're never banning it, right? No shot. They think you've got your jungler and solo right there between Odin and Gilgamesh. Why not go with something, pick your mid laner here, pick your Hunter here, and let them do it? This tells me that both Paul and Cyclone are saying, no, I need to counterpick. I need to counterpick what they're going to go with. But the thing is that one of them is going to have to take something on the back end here anyways, right? They're not going to be able to see another pick from the Kings. They're going to have to take a god before the Kings lock in their next selections. So at least one of those players does not actually get to counterpick. And it makes it easier to ban. I think that now the Kings know that the backline is what needs to be banned away. Maybe they would have double banned Paul in this spot anyways, or double banned Cyclone Spin, or split the bans like they could do. But at least make them think about banning a support away or something along those lines. I've got no problem with Odin, Gilgamesh, Bologna being on your draft. I really don't like that it's their top three.
Yeah, I think the Bologna is probably the most curious ban or pick in this position specifically. It's definitely not worthy of a top two. If you got that top two, yeah, I don't think it's worthy of a top three onto it as well. And like you said, makes it easy to ban out specific players. In this case, it's going to be Paul being banned away here. They take away his signature Hell. They've also got the Baba Yaga that they've now taken off the table. Chronos left available. Still kind of a flexibility with it. This was one of Paul's gods back when he was playing in the Amateur League and even up into the Pro League. He played a little bit, so still some flexibility with that. But where do you cut the line here for it? I mean, where do you go for the pick for Cyclone Spin if this is going to Paul, or now where does Paul go for his pick?
I mean, that's the thing, is that this could be a flex option for them, but I think it's likely going to be for Cyclone Spin. Now Netrioid gets to counterpick there, and you're letting Paul see the entirety of the draft, knowing what he's going to be going up against. But he already knows his likely jungler. I think it's pretty safe to assume that's Osiris jungle, and the mid laner in the Raijin. So I'm a little surprised that they elect to give Paul the final pick instead of letting Cyclone counterpick his lane matchup here for the Titans. But, you know, maybe this is a flex. Maybe they are saying, hey, maybe Paul takes this Chronos, and Cyclone, if he finds a really good matchup, can take it over there in duo.
But if Cyclone isn't taking this Chronos and this is going over to Paul, they're now reaching kind of deep into the Hunter pool. I mean, the top Artemis is out of the way. Though Cyclone does have a pretty deep god pool. We've seen him bring out the Izanami when all things are all said and done onto it. So still some flexibility, and the Kings are really thinking about what they want to do with this pick here. They got the Raijin, that's going mid. They got the Fafnir, that's going support. The Osiris is still that kind of question mark for them. And the Chernobog locked in here to go into the duo lane. We don't see Chernobog very often. Where does he kind of round this draft here?
I think he's just safe. There's so much dive on the enemy side. There's 3 warriors that are going to be in the back line consistently going after the ADC. So it makes some sense to give him something that with the maximum safety. Heimdall could have been solid in this spot. Jingwei could have been fine. But Chernobog lets him get to different fights around the map and be a little bit more of a late game presence with his team fighting and that ultimate in that sort of sense. As a Freya hover comes through for the Tartarus Titans, this would be interesting. It would be very auto attack centric. You would have loved to have a Fafnir on your team if you're the Titans. It's unfortunate for you that the Kings ended up taking it pretty early on in their draft. I'm not sold on Freya's viability right now. I don't think that she's super strong, but Cyclone is one of the best Freya players we've ever had. So if there's going to be someone to pull it out, I guess it has to be Cyclone Spin.
He's going to run it back. He has run it before, if I remember correctly, onto it. Didn't quite get
I don't know
how. I got one yesterday.
You got one.
Checked that box.
Maybe we're just good with keeping it at the one. I'll be honest. I was kind of hoping for like a Cyclone Spin Bologna game. I was thinking like before they locked in the Chronos, I was like maybe you throw the Bologna over
The old
there.
Cyclona.
Not necessarily something that we see often, and I don't know that we've ever seen it be successful, but it's an interesting one. Either way, with Benji here on this Bologna, I'm excited to see because she kind of showed up yesterday for the first time, but I'm also curious about this duo lane because Odin, to me, screams aggression. Freya, to me, screams patience.
Look at this. Benji was taken a bit low, but then realizes he's got the abilities. He can chase down Variety for a little bit of extra damage there. So it's a Chronos and a Freya here.
Yeah, it's a lot
for the Tartarus Titans.
It's a lot.
It looks like a Warlock staff first for Paul, and then maybe a Benevolence. Because it's been that tier 2 items, and then Benevolence after that has been kind of the mid lane thing these last couple of days. But talking about the Chronos and the Freya, right? So I'm surprised this is the first time we've seen Freya, the type of pick where I assume we'll just see a ring build. Benji gets plucked here by Variety. I'm not sure Variety has enough damage. There's a disarm from Benji as well. Captain Twig rotates over though. So blue buff respawning. This could be the first invade of the game as the Camelot Kings put some pressure on the Tartarus Titans. Blue buff, Scary D has to back away here. Benji dashes on in. Variety is going to join the fight as well. Watch out, Benji. You're half HP. There could be a pluck around the corner for Variety if he finds the space, but it won't be a drop kick from Scary D in the up down. First blood over the Tartarus Titans on the blue buff invade gone wrong.
I really like the idea from the Kings, and I think the damage that Twig is putting out should be enough, and it could have been enough to find Benji there. You had highlighted he was less than half. He has to be worried about it. But you are fighting against 2 warriors. One's Bologna, great at fighting. The other's Gilgamesh, great at fighting.
Yeah.
And you have a Sobek on your team. Once that pluck goes down, even early on, there's just not much Variety can do here. Now you're in a 2v1. Maybe you can get Benji, but I think they could continue this aggression.
That's what I was thinking. Surely a 2v1 against Variety would have worked out for the Titans. Benji playing it cautiously. It'll be a blue buff confirmed, though, eventually by the Titans, and so Benji happy about that one. It looks like both solo laners will resume farming here, but depending on what Captain Twig does here, Benji might have to play a little bit safer. But the point I was making before that blue buff invade gore is I'm surprised we haven't seen all that much Freya. Benji could be in some damage.
Ooh.
Eagles rally down.
What a turnaround!
The big kill, the turnaround on a Variety. will be a stun and a kill from Captain Twig on the back end. With how low both Benji and Variety were, I figured we playing support there. Variety thought something was about to happen, lurked in the waters, but nothing did happen. So ultimate down now from Variety. Auror's going to have to make some use of that sledge, though, here if Captain Twig will chase him down.
I mean, it does give a lot of, again, early on, it should give you some turnaround potential, but it's Cyclone who needs to be worried.
There's a stun on a Cyclone spin. Valkyrie's discretion will send a little bit of damage towards Genetics, but Genetics is transformed.
Oh my God!
Netrioid is ulted in and gotten the kill on a Cyclone spin. There's a stun onto Aurora as well, but the leap away will secure his escape.
That was 60% health to 0, like just
and absolutely something the Camelot Kings have to be worried about. But Variety as well, Captain Twig, we've seen the Osiris look near unstoppable in the late game, and opens up a little bit of this. Got the stone cutting sword on early, and you've got a frenzy. This is a big commit here from the Camelot Kings. They've used a frenzy. Can Aurora steal it away? Yes, he can. He jumps in. Bird bomb takes away the Gold Fury. The Camelot Kings at least make Aurora pay for it, but it's a big steal for the Titan support.
That's just an old-fashioned steal too. Like nothing about it. He just stood there. He let him maybe even more so. Aurora, look,
the most riveting replay you'll see.
There's nothing going on in his brain other than I'm gonna watch you do the damage and then jump in. I mean, that is about as clean as it gets. Yeah, of course you're gonna die there. Who cares? Just stole the Gold Fury.
And so a little bit of time spent, Gore, by the Camelot Kings trying to dive this Bologna. But, of course, safe enough with that ultimate to get out alive.
And so far, it's a very awkward position where any of these fights so far that the Kings have quote-unquote lost have been more on their side, right? Like, if you're spending a lot of time over there now, Scary D is on the receiving end of a couple of bullets.
Oh, Scary D, a great drop kick. Can that set up for the rest of his team? That's the big question. He does go down, and it's Netrioid who picks it up. But now it's Aurora on the board for the first time this game. A trade-back kill on a Netrioid. Variety gets the pluck onto Paul. Puts the Chronos actually right where Paul wants to be, apparently, because Paul will turn around and try to find some extra damage. Won't be there. 1-for-1 trade in a jungle skirmish.
You know what, speaking of Paul, as we watch that, first off, good kill to be able to lock down Netrioid. Like you said, if Scary D's going to die there, he's going to get something back for his team. Now it's going to be up to Paul. Warlock staff, about 2 minutes longer than like a Baba Yaga, maybe 2.5 minutes it takes. So I was trying to figure out the utility of the house there. It worked out well for Paul here because he's got it stacked up.
It's a good stun onto Genetics. Captain Twig is going to chase Paul down here. The ultimate's going to get big value now for Paul. It's actually going to put him behind Genetics, but the stun won't be there. So Genetics lives on for the time being. Now Captain Twig retreating beneath the safety of his tier 1. And this one will fizzle out as well. Unless Variety can find this. A pluck onto Benji who will take 1 tower shot, but no damage really connecting in onto that Bologna. Both actives used, though, by Paul and the ultimate to keep him alive, so this Chrono is a little susceptible.
And you can see something. First, Paul gets a great rewind attack speed. Like, it's not necessarily the, hey, you don't punch hard enough. It's a, you aren't punching fast enough to get this done. With Hasten Ring online, as well as maybe cooldown or something to make it feel like your pulse is coming up a little more often and you're able to get more damage out of it, that's always the key. We'll get to see it here.
Could we see another steal in this game? Genetics is going to have to be the one to get it done. The Titans secure the Fury for themselves, and they retreat. Now rotating in from the mid lane are the Camelot Kings. Netrioid has joined the fight here. Frenzy used by the Kings. And now the onslaught begins. Captain Twig with a massive Lord of the Afterlife into the Titans backline. And the tier 2 tower is going to be the safe haven here, but there's no safety to be found. The Camelot Kings rolling over the Titans.
It says something when you have to run absolutely not just away from your team, away from the tower, away from your lane. You have to get away from all actual safe havens that should exist for you on the map there if you're Paul, just to get away from that. That was a beautiful ult from Twig. Kills off Benji, hits 3 other people, but you can really start to see how well this team is working, not just as a unit, but how well their engage is working. Twig lands a massive ult, 2 of them on the side. Twig and Variety have the winged blade to make sure that slows aren't going to really stop them that much. They can continue chasing people down pretty easily. They get into the tier 2. You had highlighted it's not a safe haven. It's just opened up a Fire Giant.
Fire Giant very low here. Scary D is going to have to be the one to steal it away if there is going to be a steal. The Fire Giant has been stopped now by the Camelot Kings. Taiko drums roll through, and the Camelot Kings will get the FG. Genetics does fall in tow. Very, very close there. And Game on, right? I mean, Big Man Ting's at 205. Got Charon's Coin, Soul Gem, Deso, and some lifesteal in the build as well. It's not like Big Man Tings is going to struggle to keep up in damage with a Chronos, and Big Man Tings is put together an incredible season so far for himself on the back end of a good Season 7. Season 8 has looked good for the Camelot Kings and their mid laner as well. So now the FG push begins. It's Tier 2 tower. Tartarus Titans won't put up much of a defense, and I think that's the right call.
You know, one thing we haven't touched on much, and honestly, if this keeps going at this pace, we might not be able to, but Netroid's ult is going to be crucial if he has to fall back here. But they're going to Frenzy, they pop the Coerce, they're going for the Phoenix as hard as they can.
This Frenzy's been used often for these objectives, and it gets used yet again. The Camelot Kings will get half health off of the Phoenix. Genetics has been banished and leapt on by Benji, but he will leap away. Winds of Shamash nearly keeps him right in place. So the Phoenix lives on, but lots of ultimate spent gore on both sides.
I think the biggest ones on the side of the Titans, right? Like right now, you're missing, like you said, a couple of crucial key details, but Netroid has that capability. He's still full health. If he has to either fall back or split push, he's going to be able to join the fight instantly. And you still have Twig, who engaged and made that last fight around the Primal Fury go their way with his ult. So keep your eyes on Twig, because I think if he jumps in, it could end up being the end for the Titans.
Haven't seen much from Cyclone Spin yet. Bottom player damage now in the game. Wow. The Tartarus Titans need this Freya to start connecting. Variety lives yet again. The Sobek in the backline, plenty safe. And Variety will waltz on away. So, towers have been taken down. Phoenix is still stand. Captain Twig has got something else in mind here, though. He's left into the backline, and the Tartarus Titans will lock him in place. That's Aurora using the cage, but Phantom is the answer here. Netroid's got to be careful, and in the wall, find some safety.
Man, it's weird. You're walking away. There's a ton of low health bars for both teams. Scary D, he's going to continue getting aggressive. What a great drop kick!
Scary D re-engages in on the fight. You got to get a kill off of something like that if you're the Tartarus Titans. But nobody's fallen, and Set Variety is going to turn this one around. Paul has to use the ultimate to rewind himself back to safety. Captain Twig likely goes down here, so at least the Titans get one.
And they have 20 seconds left on this Fire Giant. They save the Phoenixes. The Titans do their job. Tier 2 towers, don't ever try to defend them unless you are absolutely certain when the other team has a Fire Giant. But those Phoenixes, they put up the fight, and they save one at half health, one who's regening up to half health. Now they're in a good position to get a Fury, Dave, even furthering the distance between them. Fire Giant's going to fall right here, or the buff, I should say, is going to fall off of the Kings here. So they've got a minute to set up. Benji's over on the other side of the map doing the Pyromancer right now. If this Gold Fury goes the way of the Titans, they're not just in it, they're going to be equal.
Yeah, this is no longer a free Gold Fury, though. It was started by the Titans, but then Genetics throws out the hammer and slows down the Titans. Scary D leaps away, and now it's the Camelot Kings pulling the Gold Fury, but this one gets reset. This is a big Gold Fury gore. You don't often see that 20 minutes in, but this could be a way back into the game for the Tartarus Titans. Cage and Winds of Shamash get used in conjunction, and that's kept the Kings right where they are, but instead the Tartarus Titans have lost Cyclone Spin early on in this fight.
Freya just seems to be too easily dove right now. I mean, Beads Aegis used wasn't able to get you're playing this game without a carry right now.
Right. We're at the point in the build where there should be more
You've got
damage.
4 rings. Your fingers are covered.
Right, your fingers are covered. Cyclone Spin just hasn't had the chance, right? It's been dove on too consistently, and this game hasn't been going the Titans' way to give Cyclone Spin a chance. Fire Giant gets started up, but Roar gets plucked back towards the Camelot Kings here. And so the Fire Giant gets reset. Now the Camelot Kings looking for a pick, looking for a fight. It's Captain Twig jumping onto Aurora, who uses the cage, but then Phantom will not get used, but still waiting by Genetics, and good to wait that one out there. If Aurora gets that ultimate back up by this time, this FG gets taken down.
Animosity's been finished for Netroid, so watch for his damage. Same thing there for Benji, who are going to be crucial players. Also Variety, if this pluck goes through, if he gets a good kill, he's just going to whiff it.
Variety goes right between all the Tartarus Titans. Scary D will use his ultimate as well. Fire Giant reset, and that's maybe what the Tartarus Titans were looking to do. And so the Camelot King somewhat low on Variety. Might have to consider going back. Benji's also somewhat low, so both solo laners have taken a little bit of damage here in this fight. And so it'll be an FG reset, but the Tartarus Titans, you gotta be careful
Coerce
here,
and Frenzy, baby.
Transforms, Coerce, Frenzy, damage onto the FG, and it is going down quickly, and the Titans won't have a chance to reply.
Genetics, so Biggie opened up his book, his notes, to one page that said Fafnir, Coerce plus Frenzy equals smiley face. That's been the play every single time,
and it's for the FG,
it has been really, really treating them well. I mean, every objective that they've caught off into a weird moment like that, save for what, the left Phoenix, which was able to survive there, has been absolutely blasted away with the damage they're able to do. So that's going to be what, the last 2 towers that the Titans had standing taken down. And it should start resulting in a Phoenix. It all comes down to, once again, the Titans and their defense. They were able to hold 2 Phoenixes at half health last time.
They've got needed to keep these Phoenixes alive.
It's one of those things, outside of the fact that they drafted it, not much Cyclone Spin has been able to do about it, right? I mean, he's just getting constantly locked down, and that's the problem. The peel from the Titans hasn't been enough to keep them safe. We'll see if they can do it this time because, like you said,
ooh, nice double vanish. Good double vanish. Into the cage from Aurora, but into the wall goes Netroid. Frenzy gets used, so does Phantom. Netroid walks on away. Scary D with a big dunk onto the Camelot Kings, but there's damage returning onto this Gilgamesh. Aurora trying to chase down Netroid, but won't have the chance. Paul's gotten a kill, and Captain Twig does end up falling. Variety, no good on the block here. A banish from Cyclone Spin finds some value as Variety is stunned underneath the Phoenix. But look at Big Man Tings, free casting in the backline, and it's a double kill for Netroid.
He has no health! It's just so difficult to stay alive, but look how well the Kings are playing around Netroid to make sure that he didn't fall there. And that damage is able to peel out there. Fire Giant sustain as well as a little bit, not even any actually coming down from the kid. It's all going to be the FG and a little bit of a heal from Genetics there on the Coerce. Should be able to get him up to sizable health, but not anywhere you're feeling safe.
This is not free by any means for the Camelot Kings. Cyclone Spin finally gets a kill here in this game. 26 minutes in. Scary D now chasing down Big Man Ting. This is all a bit of a silver lining for the Tartarus Titans because the left side Phoenix did fall. And so you're going to find some of these kills that effectively stall out the rest of the FG push.
But you managed to showcase something I think that is necessary here. Paul doesn't die there, Cyclone doesn't die there. Not only can you make a defense, you can find some return kills. It did cost you your Phoenix. It is 26 minutes into the game, though. This is where you really need to start seeing, if at any point in this game it's going to start, now is the time for Kronos and Freya to really start being the ones to pop off and make the big difference here. You can see the damage coming down from Paul is a lot, just in that kill as they found onto Variety. And not only that, Dave, that's a stagger kill. This is a great spot for the Titans to turn things around.
Yeah, this game now feeling a little bit more comfortable potentially for the Tartarus Titans. 45 seconds on the respawn from Variety, Big Man Tings, and Netroid. So
everybody's respawned. It will be, maybe a conversation of relics. Aegis, long time for Cyclone and for Tings here. And that's about it. I guess the blink being down for Aurora might affect things, but those two Aegises are maybe the biggest factor. This FG is respawning, and this is going to be crucial. If the Titans don't win this one, then that's probably going to be game.
Yeah, it could be game over on either side.
Yeah.
If
the Titans win this one,
if they win this fight.
It's going to be good.
It's all about how clean this fight goes. Fire Giant spawns 2 minutes away from being enhanced. Variety's been wide on a few plucks so far this game. So that's a big setup factor that's been missing for the Camelot Kings. If that changes, it's a great look at a team fight. Cage from Aurora keeps Variety in place. Phantom still in the back pocket, but gets used now by Genetics to just secure the escape of the Camelot Kings. Variety ult down. Big Man Tings uses his ult as well. There's no cage for Aurora. Purely by the numbers, Camelot Kings a little bit behind in the ult department.
Yeah, the Phantom has been used for the Kings, but if Aurora doesn't have his ult, you don't necessarily need it right now. So they were able to bait that. That's a good drop kick.
Benji's back. Scary D finds an engage onto Variety, but walks on away, and so do the rest of the Camelot Kings. Transformation from Genetics as well. Remember, that's been a big burn factor on this FG. Transformation, Coerce, Frenzy. Coerce used, Frenzy used, burn onto the FG. There's a banish onto Variety, and the stun is there as well.
Kill.
Cyclone Spin has found the kill onto the solo laner. Fire Giant low, but it's been pulled away from by the Camelot Kings. Scary D looking for the drop kick, but Netroid! He's ulted into the
Netroid!
Oh, the Kings secure the FG, and Big Man Tings gets the kill on a Scary D, but the rest of the kills go to the Titans.
I mean, that is, look, as unfortunate of the rest of that fight goes, the way that Netroid goes up and goes back in to make sure that him and Genetics are in the FG pit. It's Genetics, ultimately, that ends up securing that Fire Giant. But, it's the Titans that end up, as you had highlighted, standing strong. 4 members. A lot of gold on the map for him to get here. But with no Fire Giant, Dave, it's going to be a lot harder for them to secure. Next FG is going to be enhanced. They should be able to get some pressure out there. In fact, they're going under the Phoenix for a dive.
Sure, that's if we get to the next FG. Big Man Tings has used beads. He's thunder crashed away as well. 10 seconds on Variety, 15 on Genetics, 20 on Netroid. So this should be a Phoenix and then retreat by the Tartarus Titans, and this game has been turned around. Look. So all the cards at the moment coming up Titans.
Last time we had highlighted it, Cyclone Spin was 0-3 and 0, like you had highlighted, second bottom on the player damage. Only beating out Genetics. Now he's got 4 people beneath him in the player damage, so he's skyrocketed in that regard.
Whoa.
But he's 2-0-4 since then.
What can Captain Twig get done here? Cyclone Spin dodges out the stun. Netroid has committed his ultimate as well to join the fight on the left side. Twig and Big Man Ting still have FG. So that's an advantage here. Thunder Crash in. Raiju is onto Aurora, but won't get detonated. And so the Tartarus Titans are able to slip the noose a bit, get their way back into their own base, but ultimately the left side Phoenix will go down. Just too much pressure pushing one way, not worth the fight for the Titans.
Fire minions that the Titans have to deal with on that
in this game.
I'm sorry I scared you.
I'm nervous. Don't talk about minions ending the game, Gore. I've had too many of those exciting games, and the minions just push on in. Luckily, both teams have been able to deal with the fire minion waves pushing against one another pretty well, as both fire waves will meet their regular counterparts in the middle of the wave. Tartarus Titans will push back this one. Camelot Kings have to go a little bit further to deal with the fire wave in the mid lane. Aurora's not going to give them the chance, though. Finds Netrioid with the cage, but Genetics and Netrioid will use the Phantom to get out alive. Big Man Tings just being walked at by Aurora. Scary D has his beads, or uses his beads to get rid of the drop kick. And Big Man Tings falls for the first time in this fight. Now Benji down as well. A minute on the respawn for the solo laner and the mid laner.
I mean, you make that trade, but look, Scary D's here. Cyclone's still full health and hasn't joined the fight yet. This could be a good turn for the Titans.
Captain Twig way alone in the back line here. Looks like he'll get out alive. There were pings from the Tartarus Titans onto Captain Twig, but the Osiris able to make it back to base. The Tartarus Titans aren't going to go for the Oni Fury here.
Every time you engage on these neutral objectives, Pyromancer's up, this Oni Fury's still hanging out available, and last time we saw the two Fury and the Pyro available, Benji was the one who was split pushing all the damage and picked up the objective on the side. You can't risk being in a 4v5.
Mid-Phoenix respawn now for the Camelot Kings. They're not going to have the fire minions to deal with. And so the ballroom dance that we had going on between these two teams by the Fury has now transitioned itself over to the FG, enhanced this time, and that's a game ender on either side if enough people are alive on one team with the enhanced Fire Giant. Goodbye, Doug, to point out the couple of fire minion waves that are still spawning for the Camelot Kings, still pushing their way down the left side of the map here. Paul is going to go back to deal with those. Pyromancer with a more immediate advantage to be grabbed, especially if somebody has to go back to base. Genetics transforms, and that's been the go button for this Camelot Kings team. Coerce finds its way onto the carries. Fire Giant not committed on, though, just yet by the Camelot Kings. There's still some damage finding its way in there, but the front line peeling out against the Tartarus Titans. The FG is reset at 50%. Aurora jumps away. Genetics backs off as well.
But they dropped it. Look, all the damage went on to Netrioid. He's going to have to back. And now you get the decision. You, as highlighted, Pyromancer is there, so you can run back to this, and it doesn't seem like the Titans are going to force any issues as of right now. So not in a big rush. But Netrioid does have that ult available as well. He could theoretically be split pushing that Phoenix, make sure those fire minions were fine, be over there with Paul, and get right back into the fight.
Variety has only hit a couple of important plucks this game. That could have been important onto Aurora, but a tanky enough target to walk out of that one just fine. Paul is back in base, deals with one of the fire minion waves. Phoenix is respawned. Frenzy did not get used on that last commit by the Camelot Kings. There is no transformation for Genetics, so this Fire Giant will still fall quickly if the Camelot Kings want to commit that big relic that Genetics has waiting. The Tartarus Titans still here, though. They want to put up a fight around this. We've reached the point now where Kronos and Frey are their late game. They're going to be hurting if they find the ability
to kill these carries on the Titans. We're hovering. I mean, Dave, it's 400 gold separating these two teams, right? You don't even have necessary advantage when it comes to, I guess, maybe some wards. Realistically here for the Kings is what it should be. But, I mean, look at the map. It's smattered with everybody. A little bit more focus over here on the left-hand side. Speaking of which, Netrioid going to be able to get an Oni Fury.
Does get the Oni Fury. He is low, though. So wants to go back to base. There is no Pyromancer. So if Netrioid wants to join this fight, he's going to have to ult in. And that's going to put him behind one of the members of the Tartarus Titans. And the Tartarus Titans happy to take that advantage. Big Man Ting slowed by the winds of Scary D. Aurora's used the cage here, but it's a Thunder Crash away from Big Man Tings. 3 members of the Camelot Kings locked in place, still searching for a pick onto the Titans. And the Titans now will turn around as Netrioid has rejoined the fight.
And they're in a little bit of a stronger position. You do have the transformation back for Genetics, but Twig had to use his ult to disengage, so that's a free engage that you don't have.
Door. Frenzy used, and the Titans secure the FG, but now there's a fight on the other side of it. Genetics gets stunned down right on the back end of his ultimate. Netrioid walked down by Benji. FG to the Titans, a kill to the Titans as well, and it'll be a second onto Genetics in just a moment.
Look, 20 minutes ago, this was a Kings game through and through. They were knocking on the Phoenix already, looking to take the Titans down. Now you've got 5 members with Fire Giant grouped up.
Are they going to try to end?
They've got a minion
Titans
wave right here.
they
could at least get the Phoenix.
Aurora,
I mean, look where their waves are.
Aurora's back. The Tartarus Titans are going to go for the base of the Camelot Kings. Scary D is going to go back as well. It's Paul, Cyclone Spin,
no way
and
you
Benji
base race
pushing
without
down the mid lane.
Defend.
Captain Twig, Variety, and Big Man Tings on the mid lane. Phoenix, the Titan being looked at by the other 3 members of the Tartarus Titans. It's left undefended. There is way too much damage here. No chance for the Camelot Kings, and the Titans finish it off.
Just drafted better for the later stages of the game. And this play was huge from Aurora to be able to steal away this Gold Fury, get them some momentum, keep the gold lead close in this game. And then it looked like, okay, now we're going to end up being in a position where we're going to be behind because this Fire Giant gets really low. And I believe it's Genetics who gets in here and ultimately steals this away from the Tartarus Titans. Remember, this Fire Giant does not go their way. A huge play coming from the Kings in order to get that fire. But the big difference in this game, for my money, is this guy, Scary D. He not just contributed, but was a major factor in this game. And that has not been the case consistently for this Tartarus Titans team. But he bought them a ton of time in order to get this Freya Kronos backline working and online. And then in the late game, when they were doing a lot of the heavy lifting, he was able to create a lot of space for them and set up picks and be this zone control that they needed. This was one of the more impressive games from Scary D in all of Season 8. Really impressed with how he played on this Gilgamesh. I wasn't sure how it was going to work with the Benevolence. I was a little worried about his clear speed, but he was able to stay pretty even with what Captain Twig was doing. Also worth noting for the record that Captain Twig did not have Benevolence in this game, and his gold per minute is not that far below Scary D.
See if maybe, like you said, maybe take that Gilgamesh away. It did really good work there for Scary D, and he made that god look fantastic. One of the better Gilgamesh games that we've seen in a while, just even out of that jungle position onto it. We'll see what adaptations are made here, as the Kings do have first pick yet again.
Yeah, I think that sticking with something like the Emoja, instead of banning Artemis, I'd ban Gilgamesh right here. This is the obvious swap to me. They stick with the Artemis, which is a little bit surprising. And if I'm, not even the Titans necessarily, but if I'm playing the Kings next week and I'm looking at how they're playing this, they don't want Artemis first pick. I'm writing that down. You know, I'm making note that maybe Netrioid doesn't love that pick and that maybe we can pick and ban around that moving forward. They decided to go with the Odin instead of the Gilgamesh, and Aurora was great in that game. I didn't really praise him enough, or at all, but I really should have, because he had a very impactful game. Benji was fantastic on the Bologna as well. All 3 of those frontline members were great, but they stick with the Osiris first pick. I'm very surprised they're willing to give Scary back the Gilgamesh. I would not have.
And now we just wait for that Gilgamesh to inevitably be locked in here on the side of the Titans. No shot they let this one get into the second phase. They're going to ban this one, or grab this one almost immediately. It's just a matter of what do they pick along with it. It's essentially the same bans that we had last time, and said, you know, you swap in the Odin in that third ban for the Kings. So now I don't know if you go for the Bologna again. You kind of gave up your hand onto it, but they instead take the Fafnir, making sure to pull that one away from Genetics, and it does kind of fit into that. Would have been nice if they had that in the last game, but they made do with what they had.
Yeah, I think that Fafnir, if they're going to go with the same sort of style, and you think about we want Kronos Freya, and we want a strong front line, we have Fafnir added in instead of that Odin, which was very impactful to have Odin, but coercing my Freya Kronos late game seems pretty good. So I'm not going to argue with you about it. I think that's a good way for the Titans to shift, but maintain threat of the exact same composition coming back here for the Kings. But now you can't take Kronos and Freya. You know, you can only take one theoretically here, and the other one might get banned. So they've got to figure out what their priority is if they want to try and run it back.
And then it's also a question, do you put the bans towards that? Because it's not like those 2 gods were the sole reason that they won that one. That was just the reason they were able to end the game at the end of it so quickly, is because you got to a late game Kronos and Freya. Maybe we see if they shift some of the bans there, or if they just say, you know what, if you really want to run it back, run at least one of them. If you do ban one, though, which one do you go with the ban?
I think that I think it's probably more important to run back the Kronos in mid for Paul, and give Cyclone something else, that, Izanami, something like that can get away with Benevolence early, and then still be a late game hyper carry. If I had to guess, if I feel like we need one here for the Titans, I think I'm taking Kronos if we're trying to go with the same style of composition.
Well, Rom picked up on the side of the Kings, going over to Netroid's hand. He's been kind of defaulting back to that one a little bit more often, and Bologna one more time picked up. So they do just sub out the Odin that got banned away and slot the Fafnir in here. Now is the real question for the Titans is, do they get those same 2 gods back? And if they can get them both back, do they run those same 2?
Yeah, I don't think the Kings are going to let them get both. I think that they have to ban at least one in this spot. Maybe they can go, last game it was Hell and Baba Yaga bans. I think I might be willing to go Hell Kronos in my ban slot. But I'd be pretty surprised if they go Hell Baba again and just let them get Kronos Freya. You certainly know they won't be taking either. I mean, theoretically, Big Man Tinks could take Kronos away, but what are the odds that that's in his god pool? As big as it has been during this year, I don't think anyone else is pulling out Kronos mid besides Paul.
No, I think he's probably the only one, and this is also one of the only teams that would even pull out the Kronos. You have maybe the Valkyries with Emilitu to pick that one up as kind of a backup onto it. But interesting enough, more mage bans on the side of the Titans. They take away the Raijin and the Baba Yaga themselves, so that just allows the Kings to pick one ban for them, and they elected to ban the Freya and not the Kronos.
Little surprised, because that's the one that seemed more abusable, right? They got a better lead against that pick than they did against the Kronos. So I thought that maybe they would feel like they've got a longer window against Freya than they do against Kronos, and we can try and get it that way. But they end up going with the Freya ban. If I'm the Titans, I think I might be locking in Cyclone's God here. And this could still be Cyclone's God. Don't forget that he could just take Kronos and then go something like Baba Yaga, and then you still have great late game scaling, but a little bit less in the mage ADC department and a little bit more just outright mage damage. I don't think that there's a whole problem by going Kronos in this spot, and I wonder if it is a flex pick. I don't know if this is locked in guaranteed for Paul.
Not 100% sure. I mean, Paul does still have some other gods in the wheelhouse for the mid lane. He does have, the Halbwa into there. We have seen his Uller as well. He'll be bringing the Uller out, and I probably personally wouldn't want to see Uller in general. He hasn't had very much success so far in this phase, so we'll still have to see where it goes here. The Kings have the final 2 picks on their side to go through here. They've got their dual lane. They've got what we can assume is going to be their jungler again here for Captain Twig, taking that Osiris, though it still does have some flexibility, so these next 2 picks will more so kind of lock in where this Osiris is going to go. But we do know the dual lane rounded out here. You get the Khepri, you get the Rom.
I mean, you've got good protection now for this Rom, and whatever you end up going for with the mid lane pick here for Big Man Tings, you can get really good, peel for him with this Khepri. You've got that Scarab's Blessing locked in already. And it's going to be Ra, interestingly enough. We just saw a really good Ra performance in the SCC.
Taking notes.
Where Spreen was looking great. I don't know that I love Ra up against all the dive that they have, but don't forget that Winds of Shamash, that's a slow that keeps you in, and Ra is slow immune whenever he presses 2, so he can just theoretically walk out of that as long as he's not getting hit by something. And now you've got even better setup with the Xing Chen. So the Kings are in a position now where they've got a lot more sustain come late game. No sustain
here in the SPL. This is not a lower half team in the Camelot Kings, so if you're able to get a win here, it's got to be some validation for this Titans roster.
And such a big change for them because, again, the Kings have been trying to fight for that second place spot. They're up there, I think competing with the Leviathans as of right now, soon to be the Dragons if they continue playing the way they have lately. Whereas at least the Titans, as you had highlighted, are more or less trying to climb up out of just being middle of the pack, trying to make a deviation either into the top 3 or at least top 4 to make sure they're up in the top half. But this is going to be an important game for them. I think, 3-4 now after the set they played earlier this week. Could go 4-4 and help bring the Kings down a little bit with them.
Ooh, Captain Twig gets stunned in the middle lane. Could be an early first blood. And if that's Scary D who picks up the kill, that's massive. But there's not enough damage. All the sidestep and the blink away will keep Captain Twig alive. That would have been huge if the Tartarus Titans were able to get that, because I think Aggro highlighted it well. We talked about the duo side of the map.
And I'm going to still be worried about it. First off, body block-wise, Genetics has been on point, but it's pretty easy to body block when you're Khepri. He's got a good abduct here, at least in terms of getting damage. This is going to be the combo, I think, that is a little more devastating.
That's annoying.
than anything. Twig has spent more time back in base this game than I think he's been playing it.
That's the level. That's the level of petty I aspire to be. I toss a hammer out, And I also
Oh, you
throw
think
my
you're going to
Sunder
back
out.
in front of me?
Hey, look, you got a couple charges on that Sunder? Let them fly. Stop the back. Yeah, Captain Twig has spent some time back in base this game. In the meantime, his back gets delayed, so now speed buff's up, and Captain Twig is going to go grab that one. Scary D, bit of a jungle invade on this Gilgamesh. That's something we talked about early on in this game, Gore, and we talked about plenty in Game 1, was how good Scary D looked, right? I mean, we've talked about the Titans and how they were a team that was caught and still is caught in that consistency matrix in the middle of the pack. Some great games, some bad games. I don't think I'm overextending by saying Scary D has found himself in that consistency matrix from time to time. If he plays more like he did in Game 1, the Tartarus Titans are going to be way, way better off for it.
And that's the key detail, right? If you play like it. You just had a hell of a game on Gilgamesh, and you got Gilgamesh back. Theoretically, that's all you need to be able to do it again.
Netroid body blocks the hammer, but has taken some decent damage.
Twig's
Captain
here.
Twig rotating over from the jungle. It's a roll forward from Netroid. Cyclone Spin goes in, gets the stun on to Genetics. Beads used, and so has Shell. But now it's the ultimate from Cyclone Spin. Captain Twig's got the tether here. Should be a stun on the other side, but Cyclone Spin will use the beads to walk away beneath his tier 1 tower. Plenty of damage, though, as the Camelot Kings will rotate in, get the first blood onto Aurora.
Yeah, Tings makes a rotation over. There's a window where maybe, what, 2 more minutes in the game? Well, let's just say 1 more item in the game. All of a sudden, it is 17
Corey,
years
stop
old.
It. You get up and leave.
It is almost an adult.
I don't need to be made. I don't need to be made to feel old here on the cast, Gore. I feel that every day in my lower back, but now you're making me feel that way with the Incredibles. We'll see if some fighting here onto Paul makes a difference in this game. The rewind gets used. Captain Twig was close by if there was a follow-up attempt, but there was not. And so ults down for both of the mid laners.
I actually really like that showcase. That is, well, actually with the Spear of Desolation, so a good chunk of damage from Paul. Or, I'm sorry, from Tings. But it showcases that
1v1.
Paul's not as safe. Cyclone, yeah, he's got the horse. He's fine. So he's going to be able to get out of there. Although Netroid has the snipes. That's the follow-up. I think there's always that little bit of a trade-off that could always end up happening. But he didn't go for it, and that's what matters most. I don't know if he would have been able to get the kill.
Quick Pyromancer pull and secure by the Camelot Kings here. Benji uses the ultimate, but on the other side, can he steal it away? Yes, he can! Netroid steals away the Gold Fury. No Gold Fury is safe when these two teams play. That would have been
the big problem when you're dealing with Netroid is I had highlighted using it potentially there against, what were we watching there? Against specifically Netroid.
Yeah.
I got distracted when we came up on the screen. But using it here, instead of trying to kill Cyclone, using it for the steal, it's the classic, man. I mean, it goes back to Snoopy days. I mean, before, like when Rum was released, that was like the thing.
But Paul nearly got one shot by that searing pain, it felt like, and so I think a lot. You got to figure, Gore, a lot of this team fight kind of hinges on Big Man Tings and his ability to find a backliner with the ultimate.
Later on, that rewind isn't going to be fast enough to get you out of there. But Benji right now is the one on the receiving end.
See if there's some setup on the Benji. The chase down, the leap through, searing pain. That's not going to get anyone. Benji, though, still being chased by a couple members of the Camelot Kings. He'll get rooted in place, taken down. Big Man Tings on the board for the first time, 13 minutes in.
That was we're going to kill you no matter what it costs us. You are going to die. We are going to chase you. Super sneaky. I'd have to reback. If you had asked me like a week ago, I probably could have told you. I know at least last year, E United, I think it was up against Sanguine at the time. They were just getting thrashed for 10 minutes, and they said, you know what? Let's go for Fire Giant.
Let's go for FG. Wait, they were getting thrashed? And,
yes.
And they got the FG. We'll see if Netroid can make some magic happen with the snipes. 1, 2 are good. 3.
Oh.
Not good, but Captain Twig on the rotation behind gets the kill nonetheless. And this is clinical from the Camelot Kings. Feels like just these different aspects of the game. The Tartarus Titans getting picked off one by one. Benji dies on right after. But maybe not worth it for a tier 1 tower.
For those of you who were with us on Friday, this is a little more reminiscent of how they were playing against the Dragons,
Welcome back.
The Dragons were just able to, welcome back. But also, the Dragons just kind of played Smite, and the Titans were just there, and not a lot came out of it. But now Snipes and the ult committed, and none of them connect.
Snipe Squad, Camelot Kings, they come up empty this time. And so,
Man,
unfortunately,
all of those hit at once, though, that's going to be way too much to deal with.
We're talking a lot about Big Man Tings and his snipes. Netroid's gotten a steal with his snipes. Combine all that, and you got something scary here. The Camelot Kings not worried about a couple of their ults being down. They're going to chase in onto Benji, who will use the beads to avoid being tossed back into the fray. And so the Camelot Kings put out some pressure. Gore, I mean, there's an ult advantage here by everyone, except for the Scarab's Blessing. The Tartarus Titans could fight in. Instead, they choose to back away. Now is maybe the time to fight in as the Primal Fury gets taken low here. Some healing from Big Man Kings keeps the rest of the team involved. It's going to tick of the Winds of Shamash get it done. No, it can't. Camelot Kings secure the Primal Fury, and the Tartarus Titans just kind of let it happen.
They put more effort into it there than I think it kind of showcases. Like you said, they have the ult advantage, at least walking forward into that. But there's that, again, the awkward conversation, which is picking up towards that late game. Cyclone Spin, I think, well, let's rephrase it. Scary D had an insane late game, which made it much easier to look at Paul and Cyclone Spin as these huge carries that they could be. And so we'll need to see the pace pick up from both Aurora and Scary.
Here's a pace pick upper for the Camelot Kings. Fire Giant started. Benji's close by. There's a collapse from the Tartarus Titans. Frenzy gets used here, but this is going down quickly. It's going to have to be a steal that will not come out. The Camelot Kings secure the FG. Flag down from Benji in the back line. And now it's retreat time, but Variety's not going to let it happen. Benji will use the beads to stay on the map.
They do get a lot of relics burned. Well, 3 on each side, but 2 of them sitting off genetics, so he's going to be, I want to say, easier to kill. He hasn't had to use his ult yet. I mean, there's not been enough pressure from the Titans to really make genetics squirm in any position. The beads are down for Tings, but as long as genetics has that ult, I'm not too worried about Tings getting himself caught out, especially because they're holding hands. As of right now, they are staying together alongside Netroid. With the healing that they're going to have from that, it's just going to feel comfortable.
Is that Alienware Raw, by the way?
That is Alienware Raw.
You're telling me an alien wore this?
And not just any alien. This alien from Egypt.
That's right. Big Man Tings
helped build the pyramid.
The Alienware skin. Uh-oh, Benji nearly dies off. Netroid's got the snipes, though, and of course he does. 4-0. It's only 4 kills on the board, but the Camelot Kings knocking on the door of ending this game. Captain Twig picks up Aurora. There has not been one convincing, grouped-up team fight pushback yet from the Tartarus Titans. It's been individual picks by the Camelot Kings that have gotten them this lead. They've gotten the mid-Phoenix. This is methodical, isn't it? Mid-Phoenix, to the right side. We'll see what we can get here.
The Kings have played some really, really good Smite. The Titans have been playing in this game, but they haven't really stepped up yet to be able to match it. And again, Shades, if even, of game number 1 from them. It's not matching anything of what I would have expected. It's a drastic slowdown from them. They're not stepping forward for a lot of these fights. The control is shifting.
10K on the damage chart. So the damage has been there. It's got to stick, and it's got to be there underneath this Phoenix.
Has the animosity as well, so theoretically is going to hit pretty hard. Cyclone Spin as well has got a good chunk of his build finish. The difference is that, again, this point last time, they stopped 2 Phoenixes from being taken. Now they're defending their last Phoenix 23 minutes in. This is good, clean control from the Kings, and it looks like they should be able to get this one maybe not as easily as they'd like, but still pretty simply. There's Titan, minions coming in the other side.
Cyclone Spin used his ultimate, so now that one is down. So if there's pressure, which could come from Captain Twig as the Osiris is around the right side, could be difficult. Netroid uses the beat to voids out the stun. Here come the snipes. Will they connect for a kill? No, they won't, because Variety's already gotten it done. Left side Phoenix is gone. Scary D and Aurora are as well for at least 30 seconds. And now the Camelot Kings storm into the Tartarus Titans Titan room. In the down, the Titan will go. Looks like we're headed on to game number 3.
And look, after, 40 minutes of at least back and forth, Titans putting up a whole fight. They don't get a single kill in that game. Shout out
Titans
Paul.
just kind of rolled over and gave them that game.
Yeah, Gore and Dave were talking about it on the cast, and you know, you think back to how the Titans played against the Dragons earlier this week, where it's almost like they aren't the ones they're not playing Smite. They're experiencing Smite around them. You know, Smite is happening around the Titans at times. Like, after this play, which was a great play by Netroid, that was the last offensive thing the Titans did the rest of the game. They didn't force anything after that. And at times, this team and other teams in the league, they don't end up forcing anything. They just kind of let the game happen around them. And then the Kings are a team that in the past may have let the Titans do that. They might have been willing to go to the mid to late stages of the game without being aggressive at all. But I think that this is a good sign for the Kings. As frustrating as that game must be if you're a Titans fan, I think if you're the Kings, this game...
In order to get game 3, do they say, okay, shooting for late game, they figured it out, it didn't work, do we make that shift over to early mid now?
I don't think they have to. I think they can go with something fairly similar. You just have to be aggressive with it. And I know that you've got the Chronos. I know that you want to go late with it. But you can make plays elsewhere on the map and scare. It starts with the jungle always when it comes to dictating the pace of the map. It always starts with support and with jungle. The difference between scary in game 1 and scary in game 2, pretty stark. So the Kings were onto something, letting them have that Gilgamesh again, I suppose.
Well, this time the Kings will elect to take second pick this time around, where previously they were running that first pick one onto it. We do see 2 bans towards genetics so far from the Titans. They do go with the Terra and the Khepri. On the flip side, the Emoja kind of been a very standard ban across the board. Whether you're first or second pick, so many teams are just seemingly willing to just say, we don't want this Guardian in play no matter what. We don't want it. We don't want them to have it.
Yeah, Terra Ultimate just does it all, baby. You don't need to worry whenever you come to late game. So it makes sense. You take that away. Yamoja is very similar in that regard to late game. You just get to a point where it's too difficult to handle. I guess the Titans feel like they were forced into passive play by the Khepri. That's what this ban tells me. I don't know that I would agree with that assessment, but if it allows them to be more aggressive, I'm all for it. Don't really care about the reason. It's about the result that is more important. And now you're looking at a position where the Titans, there are 3 gods. There are 3 priority gods left on the table, right? It's Artemis, it's Morgan Le Fay, and it's Gilgamesh or Osiris. You don't necessarily want to just trade 1 for 2. I'm very surprised they end up going this direction by banning Artemis, because I would think that the Titans would value the Artemis even more highly than Morgan Le Fay. But with it open, they'll first pick it. If the Titans had banned Odin or Gilgamesh or Osiris, and then the Kings do something like ban Odin, then you're trading Artemis for Morgan Le Fay. Or they ban something completely different. They ban something that doesn't really matter to them at all, and then you're in a position. Where you're giving up 1 for 2. So they don't get the best pick available in the Artemis, but this does ensure that the Titans at least get to trade top picks at the very least.
Yeah, they do get that Morgan Le Fay, who's been banned away pretty much all day long, and for rightful so. She is one of the top mages in the game right now for that mid lane, but in response, they do give up this Gilgamesh going over the way of the Kings. The Osiris is still on the table as well. If they want to give that one back over to Captain Twig yet again, he's played it twice. Might as well get a third game in there. You can always throw that Gilgamesh over to Variety, or maybe they leave it up and see if Scary D wants it, but nope. They're just going to go ahead and grab both those warriors off the top end.
Yeah, not too surprising. This is kind of what I expected for the Kings. Give the Gilgamesh most likely to Variety. Captain Twig gets to keep on the Osiris again. It's Bologna once again for Benji. He's really liked this pick, and just the way the Titans are picking and banning, it's very clear that they want their backline to be counterpicking if they're not getting the top priority gods. In this game, their backliner gets a top priority god. They get Morgan Le Fay for Paul. I'd be shocked if this was a backliner, and it is actually. So surprisingly enough, they take the ROM, and this is a very different strategy than what we've seen from the Titans earlier in this set, which was so focused on getting those 2 counter picks. Now they take their gods very early in the draft, and things change a little bit. Now you're looking for Scary to potentially be the one to get some of these key counter pick later on in the draft.
Yeah. Taking that ROM away from Netroid after he got those nice snipes to steal away that Fury. Maybe a little bit of a, all right, no more doing that. You're not allowed to have it, so take it off the board for him, give it over there. And then the Ymir going the way of the Kings as well, going into Genetics' hands. So even despite the triple Guardian ban that comes through, as always, there is still another option available for Genetics to pick up. Another one with walls, maybe not quite the same as having a bunch of Terra walls into there, but Genetics has more than proven that he has the strength on this Ymir.
Definitely, and I love the wall up against the Morgan Le Fay. She doesn't have an answer to it. Rom has to use the ultimate. Love the Ymir pick here for Genetics, and this is one of the picks of his that has been getting banned in the top 3 pretty often, so it doesn't surprise me that he's going to prioritize it here, knowing that it's pretty likely to be banned if it had gone to the second phase. And it's already great against the backline that the Titans have. So even if the front line ends up struggling again, or being able to counterpick you and pick some leaps or, Fafnir or whatever, who cares? You already got a great pick up against the backline.
First ban's out in the second phase. Erlong Shen, the Fenrir now tossed into that one, and the Ra banning that one away from the Kings. Don't want BMT to have another success onto. I mean, we saw what it did in SCC earlier. Not quite the same level of big snipes here, but he also wasn't given that many opportunities comparatively, but still some big numbers onto it, some big healing available for him. So now with the Raijin banned away as well, they've already got their mid laners, so you might as well ban a couple more mids away, and why not take one of the premier ones with the Raijin off the table?
Makes sense to me. Force big man to something a little bit different, and it's going to be a last pick for the mid laner. You'd assume that this Chernobog is going to be going over to Netroid, still managing to play a little bit more vertically, not the ROM snipes, but using that Chernobog ultimate, getting him to a couple of these fights, and allowing him to bait a little bit better with some safety on this Chernobog, which I like. I'm looking at what the Titans have here. You know, Fafnir still open. It didn't go particularly well for Aurora last game. I don't know if they're going to be willing to go back to it. They might have lost some confidence in that pick, but I'm liking it up against what I see from the Kings. You know, point-and-click CC is good against Chernobog. You know, you wanted to have a jump to get over this Ymir wall. Fafnir seems like the obvious choice to me.
And jungler is still available as well, unless for some reason we see this Bellona go into the jungle. Unlikely, considering we've been seeing a lot more in the solo lane onto it. So options still in the hands of the Kings here. They've got their carries. They've got most likely one of their backliners here in that solo lane. Now we need to see what Aurora is going to be picking up here and to kind of round out this draft and something, in my opinion, something you need to get away from the Ymir more than anything. You can't just pick a heavy immobile Guardian because this Ymir is just going to eat you alive.
Exactly. So Camelot is the pick for Scary in the jungle. This is a pick that he has played a lot in the past in solo. I don't think it's looked particularly good in jungle to me, but it makes some sense. Athena is the surprising one here, J-Mac, because Athena has really fallen off the planet in terms of pick and ban rate since the beginning of the season, where she was one of the best gods in the game. And it's not a matchup that I like a whole lot into Ymir. I mean, not only does the wall mess with you, but you've got the freeze as well to stop the dash. Very surprised to see Athena, and pretty surprised to see this Kukulkan Khan as well. But remember,
I give him bonus points for Skinergy. And realistically, it's just fun to watch because this is a pick that is mostly immobile. I think he even has had nerfs to his slipstream, so his capabilities of escaping aren't very high, relies very heavily on everyone around him. But look, you've got Twig for setup, you've got Genetics for setup, and that 3v3, those ults, they're nice and wide compared to the raw ult as well. You're going to be able to find a lot of damage throughout all of this. Plus, I mean, let's talk about the best secure, maybe just in Smite in general. I mean, it is one of the best ultimates to have for confirming Furies, Fire Giants, Pyromancers,
what do you think is the best secure?
Let's see.
I'm a Monster's good.
I'm a Monster. Kraken.
Kraken's great.
The Spirit of the Nine wins. Raw ults. It's all mages. Yeah. That's the big key.
Right,
that's the big note.
The big insta-burst.
I mean, like, ROM ult is a cool one, but maybe not
really
the best.
Down to like ults that have like pen like baked into the ability or
jeez,
certain amount of damage, nearly a solo kill.
Needs a certain amount of damage for that.
Yeah, right. Benji wished he had a little bit more damage there. Benji has been hell-bent on making this Bellona work, hasn't he? Now 3 games in a row on the Bellona for Benji. Game 1 looked good. Game 2 didn't look like anything because the Tartarus Titans didn't really get anything going in Game 2. Maybe game number 3 will look a little bit better here for Benji.
What you're able to do in the middle of a team fight, as well as in lane. Earlier against Sobek it was not as well, but here it's working against the Osiris.
Oh, Scary D to the solo lane. Oh, but the tower shots are going to force him back. Variety again will live. This time it was two this set and then the next set today between the Leviathans and the Scarabs will be the last couple where you see it.
At least 10 times.
Right. You'll still maybe see it on
more
supports,
than 4.
More than 4, yeah, right. Because it was only supports forever.
Yep.
And then mid laners started to buy it.
Yep.
And then there was one odd game where a hunter or 2 bought it, and then it just kind of devolved there. Now fight happening by the blue buff. Captain Twig forced on back. Blue buff picked up by Variety, but watch out. Chernobog is here as well as the Athena, and it's 3 members of the Camelot Kings pushing back to the Tartarus Titans. First blood on over to Captain Twig, and there's still a chase on the back end.
Just a little bit wide there from Tings to get the damage, otherwise could have been a guaranteed kill, but they might still be able to fight it on a roar.
Oh, they are. They're going to get this one. It's a double kill for Captain Twig. It's the Gilgamesh swinging early. The Camelot Kings, what a perfect start here. Genetics, why not? Hey, I want to clear that wave. And he clears it with the old Shards of Ice.
Engage, really good way to deal with the Athena, despite the fact that Tings is a little wide on his ult. And then Genetics just like, gotta clear this wave, baby, let's go!
Ulting a wave in duo lane. Yeah, there's some humor to be found there, Gore, for sure. But it's a great start now for Captain Twig. Could be a good start for Paul, but Genetics throws up a wall, separates things out. Scary D won't pursue this one any further. Red buff considered. But the Tartarus Titans might need to consider something else here because Netroid's putting some damage into Paul. Could be a root on the other end. Beads used by Paul. Over in the mid lane, Scary D ticked on down, and Big Man Tings on the board. Oh no, Gore, this one's getting messy early, and this never bodes well for the team that it's happening against, especially when you're playing against the Camelot King.
Maybe not farewell, and then aggressive into the red buff, and not farewell. So they're getting the aggressive part right. They're just not following through with what they would like. But I do like to see him being a little more proactive. Granted, it has led to a small leap over for the Kings, which is going to be something they have to topple over. But I think a lot of the pressure is going to be on how well you can handle this Gilgamesh.
Oh, man, that's Scary D. Just took a whole lot of damage there. Luckily for Scary D, Captain Twig doesn't have much mana.
Netroid.
But Netroid rotates on over with the Chernobog. This is the same thing we saw just a moment ago, but this one looking a little bit better for the Titans until it's a double freeze from Genetics to spin things right
what a
around.
wall.
And then a great wall. We'll keep Aurora right in place, and then the chop, and goes through Captain Twig on a killing spree.
And you know what? I highlighted in Game 1, Netroid was playing this Chernobog. These are the kind of rotations you get with a Chernoboggle. Cyclone Spin just can't be a part of these. And you could argue for the snipes to be semi-global, maybe not quite as much as something like a Thor ult, but you're at least around.
Aurora is going to try to dive this Tier 1 tower. Not try, he's going to successfully do it. We'll see how successful it is. Variety dodges out a lot of the damage. The last couple autos from Benji won't connect. But unfortunately, too tanky, and of course, just enough damage in that kit. Big Man Tings is able to hit that ult. These fights are going to be comfortable given the state of the game for the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, fully stacked Book of Thoth and now a fully finished off Spear of Desolation. That's a lot of power that is coming out of the mid lane. That is going to be a good chunk of damage, and that's flat pin on the Spear of Desolation. So early game, that's going to hurt a lot more. We'll watch. I wouldn't be surprised if Charon's Coin is either the next item or, I mean, it'd be a little late in the build to go for it towards your, like, I guess, 5th slot here. But still, probably on the horizon to get some percent pin in there. Maybe even going for something, I guess, like Obsidian Shard. It's been a while since we've seen that, but still, any sort of pin's good pin.
Oh, man, Scary D gets frozen. Oh, and it's another good wall from Genetics. We're going to need a good wall buzzer at this point. You have the GG button at home?
I do.
We're going to need a good wall button because Genetics is playing so well right now. These walls have just connected. Forces the bat out of hell from Scary D. This game is just kind of going by the Camazots right now. He's done well to keep up and farm to Captain Twig. But the Camelot Kings starting to put a lot of pressure there. Yeah, one target identified and one target taken down. And that is clinical from the Camelot Kings immediately to the Pyromancer.
I'm going to add one to the good wall counter because that forces Aurora to make an awkward decision because he throws the wall up, doesn't necessarily block someone in immediately, but if you, or I guess for him it'd be protect him. Wall goes up, blocks it. Fury started up, but Genetics is
could be a steal. Wall on the back. Camelot Kings, come on, the Titans can't get anything going right now.
They can't catch a break, man.
Steal away the Gold Fury, not the FG, the GF. Not the FG. The Camelot Kings get that one. Luckily, a snipe down from Cyclone Spin at least gets a kill. But man, Gore, this game is just brutal for the Titans right now. Everything feels like it's going against them.
Only a real king could steal your GF from you. That's how it works, right? Or something like that. I don't know. I'm married. I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, thanks, Gore.
What a weird flex. Yeah, I don't understand why my brain went there.
I'm
feel
married.
bad
I don't
about
have to
it.
worry about someone stealing my girlfriend. Yeah, I don't either, Gore. You know, we're not going to get too far down here. Luckily, Cyclone's been getting ganked. He's going to bail me out of this one. It's Captain Twig at 4-0-2. So Cyclone Spin gets a kill.
I didn't have a way out.
I know, we were going to spiral there for a moment. God help everyone when you and I are on the desk for this next set because we are going to be... We have free time to sit and talk, so we'll see how things go there. Genetics could be a return kill here for the Tartarus Titans, but watch out, Netroid is ulted on in. Bat out of hell from Scary D, plucks down some damage. But that's it, and Genetics lives on, clear off that wave, and head on back to base, hopefully alive here in just a moment. Scary D, you know, he's been around, and I think the criticism we had for the Titans in Game 2, hey, good wall from Genetics onto Aurora. Captain Twig jumps in, Spirit of the Nine Winds, flies through, gets some good damage onto Aurora, a drop kick connects onto Paul. It's a great 2v1 opportunity for Captain Twig, but the disengage from Paul on the Morgan Le Fay is just enough. Scary D, bat out of hell. 1 and 2 for damage, 3 for escape. And somehow everyone survives. Hey, good wall from Genetics, gets Paul to sidestep that one. A dash on in from Cyclone Spin.
And he's looking to get aggressive, but I don't know if this is the call. Scary D just gets eviscerated by a Spirit of the Nine Winds.
Oh my, Big Man Tings picks up another kill here. Luckily, Paul is able to turn one around, and Genetics finally dies here in this game. It's only for the first time. Cyclone Spin, unfortunately,
Netroid
drops on down. Netroid very low, but a double kill from Big Man Tings in the mid lane here will further this lead for the Camelot.
50% damage reduction that it's going to have when it's fully upgraded there, so it makes it even easier to, say, gank someone like a Cyclone Spin.
All right, look, see, Aurora's coming into this fight, and I'm just scared that that's just one more kill that the Camelot Kings are going to be able to get here. Cyclone Spin uses the snipes, rolls on out, but gets caught immediately. Cyclone Spin does pick up a kill.
It's a good kill.
And Captain Twig trades one out in kind. Aurora,
Good wall.
from Genetics keeps Aurora in this fight. Now Scary D joins the fray. And again, I'm concerned because it feels like it's just one more kill that the Camelot Kings are going to be able to chase down.
It feels like that might be the case. Maybe the roster of the Titans that are at least still alive right now. Benji, potentially one more kill. Scary D, if they turn onto him, one more kill. That tier 1 means nothing to him. They're waiting for the minions. I mean, it's a game of not even inches at this point. They are taking yards at a time here if you're the Kings. They are dominating control of the map as of right now. There's an Oni Fury sitting right back for them, so they don't even need to push into this tier 2.
You think
they can fall back to something better.
You think this draft for the Titans has some comeback potential here in this game, Gore?
I think so. I mean, like, look at the damage. First off, Scary D is Camazot's is super survivable, tends to translate well into the late game, and it's fun to watch. Benji and Aurora should be a really good front line. I say that watching Benji get half of his health bar just taken away from him. But Paul and Cyclone have a lot of damage potential throughout them. And I mean, you can even see Paul's second on the damage charts, despite being he's just 1-1-1, first death, by the way, that he's had this set. So they're controlling the mid lane. They're controlling Cyclone Spin pretty well. But their damage just gets better. And it looks like Cyclone's going into crit, which makes things a little scarier, I think, for the Kings here. It's not going to be as safe. That shell all of a sudden doesn't mean as much because it's not just block stacks. It's not stopping those crits from dealing as much damage. You're just going to take half.
A wall from Genetics will keep Aurora right where he is. I got to admit, Genetics being last on the player damage charts is somewhat surprising to me here, given how involved Genetics has been in basically every facet of this game. Good knock-up from Paul, as we've seen a couple of times here. Keep the Camelot Kings at bay for the time being. Cyclone Spin sends some snipes flying to the back line of the Camelot Kings. Could Twig be the first one to go down? Could this be where the Tartarus Titans find an advantage? Variety says no. Benji doesn't want anything to do with this fight.
Oh my god!
Good
That's
wall,
so...
baby! There you go, Genetics, and then the freeze on the end keeps Benji right where he is, and Netroid thanks the support for it.
We might be able to just make a montage of Genetics walls at this point.
And I hope it's clear. I keep saying good. Just gets another one onto Aurora. At this point, I'm saying good wall as a bit. I don't think explaining the bit is the right way to go.
That one was
necessary.
Not the last one, but the one prior that catches Benji was maybe the best wall that I think I've seen this year. I mean, there's a lot of good Ymir walls this year, but that one was fantastic.
This wall is used to separate out a lot of the damage, or any damage, for the Tartarus Titans to come back in onto the Fury. And so the Camelot Kings secure this one. Cyclone's been in a position, though, to maybe make a difference. It's a big taunt from Aurora, but the Tartarus Titans waltz on in here. They're alone. It's just the duo lane, and the Camelot Kings continue.
So we'll see if maybe there's a pivot on Genetics or Variety to go for Spectral Armor. I almost forgot the name of the item because it's been so long since anyone's had to buy it. They're starting up a Fire Giant. Right. I don't know if there's any contest.
The way we sometimes see teams get back into games like this is stealing away the FG. So that's got to be something that the Camelot Kings are aware of here. The Fire Giant is going to get secured by one of the best secures in the game, and probably the best secure in this individual game, Spirit of the Nine Winds. Now the chase down begins, and the retreat is successful for the Tartarus Titans. So you're on Phoenix defense mode here, Gore. These tier 2 towers fall quickly. And the Tartarus Titans got to hope 20 minutes in they've got something to say about these Phoenixes going down.
Intoxicate. It's another good ult for trying to secure objectives like that. Yeah, if we wanted to add one to the list.
Yeah, imagine.
And it's maybe necessary here because, look, Aurora dashes in, and he's lucky that the rest of the Kings back off.
Yeah, but now the rest of the Kings go back in. Once Captain Twig is here. Bat out of hell, swoops on through the back line. A couple snipes from Cyclone Spin will tick down some damage.
Jeez.
Good wall from Genetics, keeps Scary D right in place. Cyclone Spin's going to get the Athena ult from Aurora, but no kill score, but the Phoenix goes down.
This is one of those moments, if you are watching this game, and up to this point you've been thinking, man, why do they always ban Ymir against the Kings? Like, is Genetics' Ymir really that big a threat?
Yep.
There. This has been a clinical showcase of why you want to ban Ymir up against the Kings. Picked in their top 3 this time around, something that he's kind of fallen by the wayside just playing defender on the fire minions.
Yep.
Everybody else is going to have to play defense on this left side Phoenix.
Camelot Kings were not concerned about the defense that the Tartarus Titans put up just a moment ago. Didn't need any kills, just got it done the old-fashioned way with some damage. This has been the case for Aurora, hasn't it? I'm going to dash in, try to find a kill, and then immediately just too much damage turns around onto me. It's an unstoppable Captain Twig now. One more kill onto Aurora, 0-7 on the Athena. Left side Phoenix goes down without much pushback, Gore. feels like we're in the death throes of this game.
Yeah, this has been clinical from the Kings, and now look, I mean, they're even getting aggressive beyond the Phoenixes. They're going to be able to knock that down, but this is just taking Metroid and Tings out of the equation for a little bit.
Aurora with another good, or Genetics, excuse me, with another good one. Locks off a couple of the Titans, and Cyclone Spin will be the sacrifice here. So now you've got no Hunter on a Titan defense against the Camelot Kings that have routed you so far here in game number 3. And it looks like that's all she wrote. Big Man Tings nearly one shot. Scary D there. The Titan will go down, and the Camelot Kings take this one in 3.
I mean, that was 2 really, really impressive games from the Kings. I think that's...
And then you can go out and you can execute on the game plan. You're going to win in situations like this where it ends up looking pretty easy. I just think that the Athena pick for Aurora got abused heavily, as expected, up against the Ymir. The Ymir pick was so good for Genetics, and Captain Twig played very well, Variety played very well, and that just freed up a lot of space for Big Man and for Netrioid.
Not only good walls, but also good objective steals onto that one. You did see a Gold Fury taken away there by Genetics and Netroid teaming up onto that one. Big Man Tings with some big ultimates in that game as well. We saw the one previously onto the Athena, and then we see some of the more ones used for securing objectives like the Fire Giant down at the back end. And overall, just good play from Twig on the over-under on, I believe, 7 kills or so to end out the game on that Gilgamesh.
Yeah, he played very, very well in this game and really just made it difficult for anyone to move anywhere at any point, because between Genetics and his zone control and Twig and his zone control, no one was going anywhere, and Twig was able to finish off a lot of those kills. 8-0-7, certainly a good bounce-back week for him after a very difficult week number 4. His week 5 turned it around, to say the least. He looked a lot better this week.
Yeah, definitely a strong performance out of Captain Twig this time around for the Camelot Kings. Bringing victory on top of it, and we do take a look into the standings now with that game going through. Camelot Kings still hold that second seed for themselves at 6-2. Unfortunately for the Titans, they fall down into 6th seed now, tying up there with the Oni Warriors as far as that goes. And win-loss-wise, 3-5 onto them, but the Oni Warriors getting that one win on them previously, that does put them up ahead onto it. We do look ahead into the schedule for the rest of the day, and for what we saw for the rest of the week, we do still have one more game available for you guys today. Atlantis Leviathans and the Solar Scarabs, our final set of the week here for the SPL.